Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Menstrual Health and Hygiene Management Webinar 2026, hosted by the Amazon Leadership Initiative, the ALI. My name is Annalise Amunyoko, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. So I hope you guys are excited because I am truly excited to be here with you today. And I'm truly grateful to see so many young people gathered here, as well as advocates and change makers for one important conversation. Today is a reminder for us all that we should not be ashamed. We should not have stigma, and we should not be limited. Today's theme is no shame, no stigma, and no limits. And honestly, that is the energy that we are bringing here today. So before we continue, please do drop a heart or a blood emoji in the comments, if in the chat box, if you are excited to learn, engage, and draw from a well of wisdom from the panelists and speakers that we have with us here today. And truly, thank you so much for joining us once again. Okay, before we proceed, I just wanted to ask if it's okay if you guys could quickly turn on your cameras just for a quick second. I just want to take a screenshot, and you can take a screenshot as well from wherever you are, just for us to share this moment on our social media platforms, and so that people know what that we are a part of an important conversation that is happening today. So if you're able to, then please do turn your camera on, just quickly. All right, let me quickly take my screenshot. Mhm. All right, thank you, ladies. It's such a beautiful way. I believe so much in taking pictures because it's such a beautiful way and a reminder that an important conversation was happening and that you were part of this important conversation and that change is being created together. So if you are once again comfortable, you can have your camera on the whole time, or you can also just have it off. It's also okay. So thank you so much, ladies. So now mental health is just not a woman's issue, right? It's a dignity issue, it's a health issue, it's an educational issue, and it's a leadership issue. Now, through conversations like these that we're having today, we continue to break barriers, challenging the myths, and creating safer spaces for open dialogue like the one we're having today. So without taking much of your time, I would now like to welcome our president, my sister, Ms. Tangi Kuhatumwa, the president of the Ali Southern African Caucus, to deliver her opening remarks. Ms. Tangi, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Miss Annalise, for this chance. And so sorry for the background noise if you guys can hear. And thank you very much to our host, our facilitators, and everybody in the room today. So, first of all, I would like to say good morning, sisters. And yes, we all are sisters here today. And first of all, I would like to say my name is Kohatuma Tangi, and I'm actually honored to serve as the newly elected Southern African Caucus president for the Amazon Leadership Initiative. It is with great honor to warmly welcome you all here today, or let me say to this Menstrual Health Hygiene Management Webinar 2026, hosted under the theme Together for a Period Friendly World. Okay, so I'm sure most of you have been wondering, what does menstrual health hygiene refer to? And just for your information, I got you. Actually, menstrual health hygiene refers to knowledge, or let me say having knowledge, product, facilities, as well as the support you need to manage the menstrual safety, or let me say safely, comfortably, and with dignity. And my ladies, this is not just a health issue. Actually, it's an issue of confidence. You understand? You being able to walk out there confidently, even though you are on your period, and it's also about education as well as empowerment. And the other thing, actually, there's a quote that I cherish. A wise woman once said, leadership is not just about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge. You get me? And actually, today, by creating this conversation around menstrual health and also and also like talking about it openly, making this conversation around menstrual health and hygiene. We are doing that exactly. I mean, we are taking care of those in our church, you understand, and we are actually creating a safer and more informative and more supportive world for girls and women around the world, or let me say everywhere. And actually at the alley, we believe in breaking barriers, you understand, actually ending stigma and empowering young women to speak boldly, live confidently. And today's webinar is more about, it's not just about a discussion, it's more about movement towards awareness, dignity, and the change that we need to see. To all our speakers, participants, organizers, as well as guests, I want to say thank you for being here, and for choosing to be part of this impactful conversation. From my side, I would say let's lock in, engage, engage actively, learn openly, and leave this session inspired and empowered. Once again, I welcome all of you here, and I wish you a fruitful and impactful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my beautiful sister, for such a warm opening remarks. I really took a lot from it in terms of empowering women to speak boldly. And leadership is about taking care for those that are actually in charge, in your charge, right? So thank you so much, my beautiful sister Tangi, once again. We now move into our first session of the day, knowledge session, which is probably going to be very interesting. So I highly recommend you to please have a notebook by or pencil, just like I do close by. So whenever you're able to, you just note down or any questions that you might have. We will have a Q&A session at the end. So our knowledge session will be about exploring menstrual health, hygiene practices, product options, as well as the misconceptions surrounding menstrual health and hygiene. Now, to lead us through this session, please help me welcome. You can share a clapping hands emoji in the chat box. Miss Elizabeth Juma, my beautiful sister, QS Impact Council President, and the young female leader from Zambia. My beautiful sister, Ms. Elizabeth, you're welcome.
So much. I hope I'm um so as earlier mentioned, my name is Elizabeth, a young advocate and humanitarian from Zambia. Currently serve as the Youth Council President under QS Impact, and I'm a member. Excuse me, I'm a member and volunteer at the Zambia Red Cross Society. I am passionate about SDGs, particularly climate change and how it interlinks with other SDGs. So I'll be taking you through the first session where we'll learn about menstrual health and hygiene, as well as menstrual products that can be used, and myths and misconceptions about menstrual health. So for me, I believe that menstrual health is not only about having monthly period. So it's also a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being related to the menstrual cycle. It can include access to accurate information, like what we are having right now, where people need to be informed on issues about menstrual health and hygiene. Having access to menstrual products like pads, clean water as well, which is important because when you're on your period, you need to be clean. Also sanitation facilities, health services in case of young women who are facing challenges during their menstrual period, like severe pain, which would require medical attention. So menstruation is a normal biological process. It's physiological. It's normal. So it's not a medical condition. It's a normal process. and it occurs when pregnancy doesn't occur. So if fertilization does not take place, then someone is actually going to menstruate. So it results due to lack of pregnancy. So if fertilization hasn't occurred, then menstruation occurs. And during the process, the blood that actually is discharged is as a result of the shedding of the menstrual line, uterine lining. So the uterus, the endometrium, which is the inner line, where baby is implanted when fertilization takes place. So if fertilization does not take place, then that line is going to shed off. So the lining sheds off when fertilization does take place, and then as a result, someone begins to bleed through the vaginal opening. So global, more than half of the world's population migrates at some in their life, and in certain situations where a young woman or able to menstruate, and this adds to some medical or menstrual conditions, which I'm sure the next speaker is going to highlight that. So coming to the theme of stigma and no limits. So when we talk about stigma, menstruation should be treated as something shameful, dirty. It's not something you have to be of. It's a normal thing. It's normal to go through such a process. It's not something that cause you to be embarrassed or to keep it secret. So societies developed cultural myths that individuals as unclean and impure. So in situations, I don't know other cultures, countries, but like in Zambia, a long time, I think some other cultures or people still practice. So consider someone who's menstruating as unclean or impure, so you not to cook. So you're not allowed to cook because you make the household sick. So this is just a myth or a misconception about what eating is all about. So things actually cause people keep such issues a secret, such that when menstruating, they are having stroke condition, they end up with harmful for them. So if eliminated, it's going to have a lot of lives. So these beliefs actually lead to discrimination and exclusion from schools, social activities, religious gatherings, and leadership opportunities. So I heard thing I had last is a movie about mental health and hygiene, a true life story. I think it's from a young child began her menstruation she started her first at school, and she was shamed for it. So she was actually shamed by the friends, but by the teacher. And in the child was going back home that actually ended up suicide. So if such things or if stigma is then people won't feel discriminated or excluded, and they'll easily report to school, for work, they'll social activity, sports and leadership, the leadership opportunities. So stigma actually causes questions and delays to help when problems occur. Then we shame. So most people usually feel embarrassed when they're on their period, especially if you, let's say, you're at school or at work, and then you end up messing your clothes due to leakage. So another example I can give is during the same meeting, one girl actually gave her story. Like she told us what happened to her. She said she was in I think Trent, and when she stood, she actually missed herself. And the worst part is she did not receive help from her fellow girls. Everyone was watching, and the person who actually helped her was a man. A man is actually someone who helped her. That's partly good and bad in a way that your fellow women going through the same thing are just watching you going through such a moment. And it's good looking at the fact that a man who we consider to keep such issues from would decide to know and not post about such that is the same who actually help girl. So, which also shows us that menstrual health hygiene is just a girl problem. It's a human rights issue. It's also a public health issue. It's a man problem. It's a girl problem. It's a community problem. So it's not supposed to just be talked about by females. It's supposed to be talked about by everyone. So many girls and women actually grow up believing that menstruation should be hidden at all costs. And it's actually can create anxiety, fear, and loss of confidence. Then with limit, so for limit, this could be due to having inadequate pads or not having access at all to menstrual products. You are not able to cool, you're not able to report for work. So such things should not be limiting girls to participate in such activities, to school, participate in sport, have leadership opportunities. They shouldn't. So this can be eliminated when adequate menstrual products or sanitation facilities or healthcare services actually readily available. So I'll say a bit on the female reproductive system and menstruation. So as females, we have ovaries. We have the uterus, which we call the womb, which carries the baby. And then with the ovaries, they are reproductive organs which are located on either side of the uterus, which is the womb. So they are connected. They are connected to uterus through the fallopian tube. So the fallopian tube is where fertilization takes place. So the ovaries, they produce eggs. So the eggs are fertilized just by the ovaries, and then they also produce hormones such as estrogen and progesterone. So estrogen hormones are key in the menstrual cycle, the uterus to prepare it for pregnancy, as well as it's the hormone that's during ovulation. So ovulation is like a state where the, how can I say it? Let me just say it's that best time to conceive. Yes. So estrogen actually helps. It's actually the hormone that's produced during ovulation, and then it helps in thickening the lining of the uterus to prepare it for pregnancy. So, like I said, the fallopian tube, it connects the ovaries to the uterus, and then after ovulation, the egg travels through the fallopian tube. Then for the uterus, so like we say, the uterus is the muscular organ where the baby develops during pregnancy. So it implants there. That's the normal site where the baby is supposed to implant. So every month, each month, the inner lining of the uterus, which is endometrium, it thickens in preparation for pregnancy because estrogen has been produced. So if pregnancy does not occur, the lining is going to shed off during menstruation. So this is the blood that comes out. So the blood is as a result of the shedding of the endometrium, the uterine lining. And then we have the cervix. So the cervix is the lower part of the uterus that opens into the vagina. So for the cervix, it produces cervical mucus. So I don't know if most of you have noticed that there's discharge that is being secreted through the vagina every time. So it's sometimes it's creamy, sometimes it's clear. So this is as a result of the uterus. So for those who know their bodies really, really well, due to the secretion that is secreted, that is removed, you can really tell that right now, because the discharge that's coming out is clear, with like this, right now I'm ovulating, right now, this is the stage I'm at right now, I'm at stage. So this is because of the sex. It produces cervical mucus. Whose consistency changes throughout the menstrual cycle. Like, so it can be clear, it can be creamy, it can be like this. So also you can, yeah. So it produces cervical mucus. Then for the vagina, so this is an opening through which menstrual blood exits the body. So for the menstrual cycle, like I said, there's estrogen that produces progesterone, but there are other hormones that are produced as well, like gonadotropin hormone, luteinizing hormone, and follicle stimulating hormone as well. These are also essential for menstruation. So during the menstrual cycle, there are actually 4 phases. So there's the menstrual phase where you bleed. Then there's the follicular phase where the follicle-stimulating hormone is produced. Then there's the ovulation phase. So this is where ovulation takes place, which is for those who have a cycle that is 28 days. So meaning you ovulate on day 14. And then for those who have a cycle of 21, I think you ovulate on, is it day 10? Day 10 or 11. For those who have a cycle of 35, you ovulate day 17, day 18, somewhere there. So it changes. Not everyone has the same cycle. Others have 21, others have 28, others have 35. So the normal range is 21 to 35. If it's less, I think you have to seek medical attention, seek medical advice. If it's more than 35, let's say 40 and more, you have to seek medical care as well, because the range they've stated as normal is 21 to 35. So the menstrual cycle is controlled through communication between the hypothalamus, which is in the brain, the pituitary gland, which is also in the brain, and the ovaries. So the gonadotropin releasing hormone, the hormone I talked about, is produced by the hypothalamus. So it's produced by the hypothalamus, and then this hormone signals the release of follicle-stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone in the pituitary gland. So it's going to signal the pituitary gland to release these hormones so that they start working. So for the follicle-stimulating hormone, which is produced by the pituitary gland, it stimulates the growth and the development of the ovarian follicles. So when the ovary, when the egg is released from the ovaries through the fallopian tube, it's immature. So this follicle stimulating hormone, it helps to mature that egg so that it can be fertilized. So each follicle contains an immature egg, like I said. And then the luteinizing hormone as well is going to be produced. So there will be like a certain rise, which we call the LH surge, and this triggers ovulation. So follicle stimulating hormone, it's going to trigger growth of or maturation of the egg that is released. The luteinizing hormone is going to trigger ovulation. And then in the process, the estrogen is actually going to be produced and it will peak as well. If you have time, you can actually go on Google and it will show you like a diagram which shows which hormone is released at what point and when it increases and when it drops. So estrogen, like I said earlier, one of its function is to thicken the lining of the uterus to prepare it for pregnancy. It also improves blood supply to the uterus, and it influences mood and cognition, and it helps prepare the body for possible pregnancy. And then now our last hormone, which is progesterone. So this one is produced by the corpus luteum after ovulation. So for the corpus luteum, in a way that I can say I understand it, is let's say the normal egg that we eat. So let's say the egg white and the yolk, let's say the chick is born and the shell cracks and the chick leaves the shell. So that shell that's being left is actually one responsible for producing the progesterone. I hope I didn't confuse anyone, because that's a way I can say I can explain it in a simpler way. So for progesterone, for it stabilizes the uterine line, and it prepares the uterus for implantation. It also supports early pregnancy and influences body temperature and can also affect mood and energy levels. So we'll talk about the menstrual phase, which is from day 1 to 5. So this phase begins on the first day of bleeding. And what happens is that the egg that is released in the previous cycle was not fertilized. So like I said, menstruation occurs as a result of lack of fertilization. So if fertilization didn't take place, then the egg is going to die. So as a result, the corpus luteum breaks it down, and then estrogen and progesterone levels are going to drop because there's no baby to support anymore. So there's no need to continue thickening the uterine lining, and there's no need for stabilizing the uterus to support the uterus to keep that baby. So the levels of these hormones is actually going to drop. So because the level of these hormones has dropped, the uterine lining can no longer be maintained, and then it breaks down, and then it's shed through the vagina as menstrual blood. So a long time before I knew, because I myself did not learn about menstruation earlier on. Like from what we heard now, children in school are actually learning menstrual health and hygiene. Somewhere grade 3, grade 4, if I'm not mistaken, in Zambia. I've heard they've added that in the curriculum in schools. I don't know about other countries, but for me, I never learned that at an early stage. So I didn't know. And even when I was learning, the someone who explained to me didn't explain that word. I actually thought the egg dying was actually the one resulting to us bleeding, but it's not the egg. The egg dies. And what is shed, which is the endometrium, the uterine lining, is actually what is as a result of menstrual blood. So some common symptoms during menstruation, you have abdominal cramps, you have lower back pain, you have fatigue, you have headaches, you have mood changes, you have breast tenderness. So some have diarrhea as well. So for the cramps and diarrhea, they're actually interconnected because another hormone-like substance is produced, which is prostaglandin. So prostaglandin, it causes contraction of the uterus, so so that the the lining can be expelled. So that's why we have contraction. That's why we have cramps. So when contraction of the uterine muscle, when it starts contracting, then we have cramps. And then prostaglandin also stimulates contraction of the intestinal lining. So that causes motility or movement of the digested food that you have, and then which results to diarrhea. So when we take painkillers, those painkillers like brufen, they actually prevent the production of prostaglandin, and you find cramps stop, and then, well, the diarrhea as well. So, like I said, the contraction of the muscle helps expel the uterine lining, but may also reduce blood flow, causing pain in cramps. Then for the follicular phase, so this is the 1 to 13. So menstrual phase is the 1 to 5, follicular phase is the 1 to 13. So with this one, it overlaps with menstruation. So after bleeding starts, the moment you start your period today, that's the day you start counting to your cycle. So if your cycle is 28, you start bleeding, let's say today. So you start counting today is 1. Until if you attend for 5 days, day 5, you keep counting until 28. I don't know if I'm making sense, but so I'll give an example. If you go to the hospital and they ask you when was your last menstrual period, so when they ask last menstrual period, we mean the first day you started bleeding, not the day you stopped, but the day you started bleeding. It also used to confuse me until I had to inquire more, and with my research and explanation I got, that's what I was told. So during this phase, the follicle stimulating hormone levels, they rise, and then they stimulate ovarian follicles to grow. So now they're helping the egg to mature. And then each follicle contains an immature egg, and then as the follicle grows, they produce estrogen. So now, when estrogen is produced, it's preparing you for ovulation. So the estrogen is going to lead to regrowth of uterine lining. So the uterine lining, it's the lining that was shaded. You've already shed the endometrium. So now when the follicular phase begins, the estrogen that's produced is going to help another uterine lining, the endometrium, to regrow again. Because the previous one was shed, so you have another endometrium. So now, when the cycle begins again, the estrogen that is produced is going to help the regrowth. So after the regrowth, and then it will produce, it will lead to the thickening. We're preparing for another possible pregnancy the next month. So it increases blood vessel formation and then thickening of the endometrium. So one thing you should also know is that not one egg is produced. Multiple eggs are produced and they travel through the fallopian tube. But there's only one that wins the race and then tries to go to the uterus. So the others, they die. They die faster. So they die, and then the one that has won the race, it continues the journey. So if the one that has won the race hasn't met with sperm, then it's also going to die. And then estrogen drops, progesterone drops, and then you shed again. Then for the ovulation phase, like I said, this is around day 18. So for those who have a menstrual cycle of 28 days. So your ovulation phase is at day 14. So at this stage, please be careful because you are likely to conceive. If you don't want to conceive, be careful. If you want, this is the best time. So this one is the shortest phase. And then when estrogen levels reach a high level, the pituitary gland, it releases a large amount of luteinizing hormone. So this is what we call now the LH surge. So it's peaking. So the dominant follicle here, it's going to rupture, and then it's going to release the mature egg. So that shell that's keeping the egg, it will more like die and then release the egg. And then this process is called ovulation. So some signs of ovulation, they'll be clear, stretchy cervical mucus. Like I said, the cervix is responsible for the production of cervical mucus. So during ovulation, that cervical discharge, that comes out, it will be clear. Then there'll be mild pelvic pain. There'll be increased libido. There'll be slight increase in body temperature as well. Then the egg can survive for approximately, is it 12 to 24 hours, if I'm not mistaken. So if the sperm does not come, because the sperm can survive more days, I think up to 5 days. So ovulation phase is not the only unsafe day if you don't want to conceive. There are some days that if you're closer to your ovulation date, those are not safe days because a sperm can survive inside you for a period of like maximum, I think, 5 days. So it's likely to fertilize. So during this time, during these
Miss
hours,
Elizabeth,
2 to 24 days.
Miss Elizabeth, I just wanted to mention that we are running a bit behind schedule, so I'd really appreciate it if we can be a little faster.
Oh, all right. Sorry for that. All right. So I'll just go the menstrual practices. So for good menstrual hygiene prevents infection, discomfort, odor, and skin irritation. So some important practices are changing of menstrual products regularly. So for some pads, they'll indicate you have to change them every after, is it 48 hours? So you have to change. So if you don't change, there are some consequences that can happen. Also, washing hands before and after changing products. Use clean water and mouth soap for external genital hygiene. Please don't clean inside vagina. Vagina cleans it. So just clean the outside part of your reproductive organ. Don't the vagina. Don't add soap. Don't add water. The vagina cleans because that as well can lead to some bacterial of infections. Bacteria they thrive in alkaline conditions or moist conditions as well. Then wear clean, breathable underwear. Don't wear underwear that's too tight. Dispose products safely. Don't throw products anywhere. Like we said, also menstrual health, it's a public health issue. So it's not just affecting you, it's also environment. So don't contaminate the environment as well. Dispose of these things safely. And then maintain adequate hydration and nutrition. This is very important because hydration helps to reduce bloating and cramping. I don't know about others, but for me, it does help. Nutrition as well helps. If your diet is good, for some say it actually helps to reduce cramps and certain unnecessary things. Then seek medical care for unusual symptoms. If there's heavy menstrual bleeding, if it's not normal for you because you know your body well. So if it's something that's out of the ordinary, seek medical attention. Severe pain, which we refer to as dysmenorrhea. This one, seek attention. Any other pain that cannot be prevented using, no matter how much medication you take, seek medical attention. Then some products that can be used, we have disposable pads. So these ones are widely available, easy to use for beginners. The only limitation is that prices keep increasing for these products. And also environment is the fact that some people keep disposing them anyway. Then for other products, we have reusable cloth pads. So these ones are environmentally friendly, cost effective over time. And then limited, they must be washed properly, and then they require access to clean water. So if you live in an environment where you don't have access to water all the time, that's actually a limitation. Then tampons, so these ones are useful for like sports. So the fact that for others they find these really comfortable, others they don't. And then these must be changed regularly. So these ones, I think you have to change them. Is it 4 to 6 hours? I'm not sure. I've never used them, but I think 4 to 6 hours. So if you don't change them, you're actually at a risk of having toxic shock syndrome. We also have menstrual cups. So these ones are also reusable for several years. They are cost effective and environmentally sustainable. And then the only limitation is they require proper insertion and cleaning. Also, period underwear. This one is new to me. I don't even know what they look like, but if you know, please do maybe a picture. So these ones are comfortable. They're also reusable and environmentally friendly. The only limitation is they require washing and high initial costs. Then I think
Ms. Elizabeth,
I would go.
we're quite behind with time, so I'll have to just end your session there. But thank you so much for such an insightful and empowering session. I learned so much from the notes I've taken down here. I'm definitely going to do further research. And I know my sisters in the chat, if you're also truly just inspired by the conversation and you learn so much, please do share on our social media platforms. And please do not forget as well to take the Ali. The social media handles are in the chat box. And do drop a heart, do drop a clapping hands emoji just to acknowledge how amazing Ms. Elizabeth was for that beautiful session. So now we move to our next speaker, Dr. Nohan, who will be speaking on menstrual health disorders and conditions, specifically understanding PMOS to PCOS. Now, this is definitely a conversation many young women need access to. So please do take your notebooks and note down whatever you're going to learn from her expertise today. Dr. Nohan, the floor is yours. And thank you so much for joining us today. Please do give a round of applause, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Annalise. And thank you also for Exida for stalking me in LinkedIn and introducing me to your organization. I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to be part of this conversation. And it will be lovely also to hear who's in the room. So also feel free in the chat to say your name, where you're from, what is your organization, or what is your focus. So it keeps me also know who's there. So I'm Nurhan Badr. My background is in medicine, so I'm half guilty about what's happening in what's happening in Western medicine in menstrual health. And I did master degree in public health and all of my expertise in SRHR. I'm based in Egypt, Cairo, Egypt. So also most of my background are coming from the part of North Africa, which is I know that you're not most of you are not familiar with, but also I'm familiar with a lot of context in East Africa, mainly because where I visited and worked a little bit. So the topic about menstrual disorder, I work also with Love Matter Arabic, which is a digital platform that provide information about sex and relationship. So I wanted to not take a lot of time to discuss the disorder, but also help you to use some of the material and use also some of the conversation. So we have a YouTube channel. I'm going to share it where you find 40 like 400 videos. So this is the YouTube channel. You will find video tailored for adolescents and video tailored for adult. You can use it, and I guess because it's in Arabic, but you can use the CC translation, so you can see a lot of the videos in English or any language that YouTube support the translation. And I'm going to give you an example about one of the videos. Also, I'm going to share it here. So you can have the videos. And also I'm going to share the Instagram so you can follow still the translation sometimes give you a context of what's happening. In terms of the disorder in general, I wanted to talk about I really like the theme of this topic because of the stigma, and I guess this is one of the highlight, the stigma that you talk about your disorder, but also stigma that the healthcare provider knows your disorder and be able to diagnose you correctly. And we know that medical gaslighting is that when women is trying to convince the physician of the pain that she's experienced, especially when it's come to menstrual health, and especially when it comes at younger age. The younger you are, the more likely that they're going to dismantle you and dismantle the pain that you are having. So it's really important to be your own advocate and try to encourage younger generation to encourage yourself and encourage to push the healthcare worker, whatever it was, a nurse or a physician or a community health worker, to convince them with the seriousness of the pain. I don't think that it's our role, but this is the reality that we live in. So I always advise young people and always advise my friend to be advocate for themselves, to say no, this is not normal. I don't think that the baseline or the threshold of the pain that I'm feeling is not normal. I'm saying this because when we explained the speaker before me explaining all the process of menstrual health is very tricky process, like a lot of hormones works and a lot of pathways, and any deviation from this, it has a disorder in the medical background. So not having the menstrual cycle like amenorrhea, which means not having it at least for 3 months, it means amenorrhea, which is no menstruation, and to the degree of having it more frequently, when also, I don't want to say all the Latin names of medical condition, but also anything that deviate. For example, if you're the menstrual cycles are the whole cycle, right? It's like the 28 or from 21 to 35. If it's more than this or less than this, we consider it as abnormality. But also you need to acknowledge that everyone need to be normal within their own body, right? So Western medicine provide prevalence and provide data, but also you need to understand that most of the data that we have right now still data coming from US or UK, so not necessarily representative of the African body, right? Like we don't have a strong statistics and a stronger prevalence about like what is normal in Africa, given the condition of our genes or our race or also our temperature. All of those factors play hugely. So it's really important to acknowledge the prevalence or the normal rates when medicine say, but also consider it normal what is normal for you. Sometimes we know that some of girls have a period from 4 days, 5 days, stay in those, and some of girls having 3 days. Still normal, but also consider the normal for you. If it's normal for you to have it always 5 days and out of sudden you are having it 3 days, then you have to alert yourself and start to speak to healthcare provider. So first of all, the duration, as you say, the cycle, if the cycle is lower than 121 or more than 35, and also the duration of the period itself. It's supposed to be from 3 to 7 days. If it's decreased or increased, it's considered some sort of a deviation from the normal. You can go to the physician and do hormonal workup or do sonar and still be okay. So it's fine, but you need to alert yourself for any change. And we need also to acknowledge that a lot of environmental factors that play on this normal. So, for example, if I'm stressed, if I'm having exams, if I'm experiencing strong stress from around my family, or there's something major happening in my country, stress affect hugely, the stress hormones affect hugely the normacy of period. Also nutrition. If you were fasting, for example, and happy Eid for any Muslim here who is celebrating Eid, and or you are eating so much or so little, also it affects your period, right? The weather sometimes, if you are traveling, and we notice a lot when we travel, the period sometimes come before its time. So we need also to acknowledge this within the normacy. For example, I dive a lot in the sea, and it play a huge factor in my period. And I was not able to find a one physician saying because you having a lot of pressure on your body in the sea, it affected the normacy. We have seen also, for example, people who work in the flight attendants also work. So we need also to encourage all the environmental factors that affect our body between the normal. And I guess the second part, and that's why I was speaking about the medical gaslighting of pain, is the premenstrual syndrome, and this more premenstrual syndrome, which is the most famous, right? Everyone acknowledge that sometimes before the period, you're having some sort of experience different mood swings, pain, change in your digestion, change in your appetite, which goes hand in hand of why a lot of people have this conversation of women not able to have a decision making because they have those feeling or they have this hormonal change, which is not necessarily true. But everyone premenstrual syndrome is different, and we notice now that also you can have post-menstrual syndrome. Some of the girls experience after the period, they experienced sometimes pain in their backs or in the legs, or sometimes diarrhea, like for some sort of a change in the digestion. Both premenstrual and post-menstrual, if it's manageable by pain or nutrition or exercise or hot shower or whatever normal remedy around you, it's fine. But if you're feeling it's really painful, that it affects your style of going to school, going to university, going to work, being able to stand up and do whatever you want to do, then you have to go to the physician. And I guess the most severe one that we are seeing now is the premenstrual dysmorphic disorder, which means it's more severe, very painful, and the mood swings can go up to an anxiety attack or a depression attacks. So it's really serious, the hormonal change that happen around this period. So it's really serious there is difference between feeling down, feeling a little bit blue, but also feeling really, really no feeling that you want to do anything in life. And this is also a very red flag, if I'm going to say, to go to the healthcare worker. And I guess the two conversation that happening now, I don't know if you heard or many of you heard about the change of polycystic ovary. syndrome to another name that has been advocating for it, I guess, for more of a 14 years nowadays, to go into polyendocrinal metabolic syndrome instead of polycystic ovary. Poly in Latin means a lot, or many in English. And this is change is acknowledge the fact that many disorder that we see in women, we think about it's about the uterus, it's about the reproductive age. But this is a very important because it acknowledges that female bodies work also in the whole body. So the polyendocrine is saying it's endocrinal disorder. It's related to a lot of glands, and it has an effect that happen in all the body, and it happen one of the manifestation, it happens in the ovary or in the reproductive system. It's not a reproductive system issue. And this is also, you can see from the lens of the people who were thinking about this disorder when it started, they were thinking about like, oh, it happened in the uterus, it's a female issue, right? It's a reproductive health issue. Now this shift of saying no, it's have a lot of effect on the body. We are seeing, for example, many girls that have polycystic ovary not necessarily have those cysts in the ovaries, but they have other manifestation, for example. And I guess now more than ever, a lot of you might be heard about insulin resistance, for example, or metabolic disorder, or gaining more weight, or having some extra hairs because of the high testosterone. So this shift took a 14 years of a change in the medical sphere to change the name and to change the approach of how we are going to do so. And it's really interesting because if you read this book about invisible women, it talks about the data and how the data is produced. A lot of the data are not coming from female bodies. It's coming from male bodies, and it's coming from male white bodies, right? So there is a lot that going to be changed in the future about like what is mean to us, the data represent to us, the normal rate represent to us is not represent the white man in certain diseases, not only reproductive health diseases, but also you can see it in cardiovascular diseases or metabolic diseases. And I guess also you heard a lot about endometriosis, which means the tissue of the endometrium, that the one that we shed during the period, becomes more and more invasive and becomes more outgrown. And now also more than ever that a lot of women and a lot of medical physician is acknowledging is not only endometrium that happen in the reproductive system. We have been seeing growth in lung, for example, in the stomach, in other part of the body that is not reproductive. Both, especially endometrium or endometriosis, is really difficult to diagnose, right? It's women experience their period as really heavy and very painful, and it takes a lot of convincing to be diagnosed, and it was not still not so familiar with many physicians to know about it. So this is an overview of the change of period. I guess the period start when adolescents, like you don't have it as on a regular basis, like you get it like 1 time, 2 time per year, once it establishes its own regularity. But also when we go through menopause or the pre-menopause, also the changes also happen. So we say that this woman is menopausal when she stopped seeing the period for the whole year, like none of the period for the whole year. We say that this woman safely menopausal, and it's a really important definition to know, because a lot of women stopped using contraceptions when they see that they have, like, they don't see have a period for 3 months, for example, and they are 45 or 50, they think that they now menopausal, but no, sometimes they even become pregnant at this age. So it's really important to be conscious of this definition for you and your family and everyone around you, that having no period for 1 year, it means that you now going through menopause. I don't want to talk about also about the pre-menopause that we are seeing more than ever nowadays, because also a lot of factors that related to stress and a lot of other factors, but also we need to be conscious about the whole cycle, not only the beginning of the cycle or experiencing it, but also how it ends, and also how it's have an implication of the body. Because also the decrease of the estrogen have also effect on the woman health, both the bodies and also the psychology and well-being. I don't want to take a lot of time. I'm conscious of time, so maybe later if anyone have questions that allow this in the space. You are muted, Annalisa. I guess you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, Doctor, for that such insightful and educational session. I learned so much, especially from the beginning where you mentioned that it's important to be your own advocate. And I learned so much, especially in terms of premenstrual syndrome and the post-menstrual syndrome as well, and especially it affecting everything from going to work, from going to school. This is a daily thing that happens. So thank you so much. I'm definitely going to do more research on it. And I hope my sisters are also taking notes in the space. And for any questions, we'll just have them open for the question and answer session. Okay, so now we move into our advocacy panel session where our panelists will discuss workplace and school inclusion, gains and existing gaps, as well as legislation and legal frameworks surrounding menstrual health and hygiene management. So I do apologize for the noise in the background. Now, this promises to be a very engaging and insightful discussion. It will be facilitated by my beautiful sister, Ms. Bonwise Mashudu. So yeah, I hope you guys are eager to learn as much as I am. So far, it's going great, and I hope that you guys are also taking notes of the questions in your notebooks. Please do leave them in the chat box as well in case you forget. And don't forget to share and just network with us, especially on our social media platforms as well. On to you, Bonwise.
Thank you so much, Annalisa, for that warm welcome and a very, very big welcome to everybody present in today's discussion. Okay, thank you all for joining us for this important conversation on menstrual health and hygiene management under the theme No Shame, No Stigma, No Limit. But before we begin, I want us to quickly dive into what this theme actually means and what it actually means to me, okay? So no shames means creating spaces where girls and women can speak openly about menstruation without embarrassment, fear, judgment, as menstruation is a natural part of being a woman and should never take away from somebody's dignity or confidence. No stigma means challenging the myths, okay? We need to challenge every single one of those myths, teasing, silent, and harmful beliefs that continue to surround periods in many, many communities. And for me, no limits means ensuring that menstruation never becomes a reason a girl misses school, loses an opportunity, stays silent, or feels excluded. Every young person deserves access to information, products, support, and safe spaces that allow them to thrive. Today, we're not only talking about periods, we are talking about dignity, right, equality, and access. Menstrual health is not only a personal matter, it is a public, political, and right-based issue. As we gather here today, we are also representing the voices of the young girls whose experiences continue shaping this conversation. So to help us unpack these important issues, I will now introduce our incredible panelists and invite them to this beautiful conversation with our first speaker being Ms. Grace Manzo, the founder and director of Bright Girls Movement and young female leader passionate about youth-led advocacy, menstrual health, and empowering young girls. Miss Grace, Zimbabwe has been growing youth-led advocacy around period poverty. Wait, is Miss Grace with us in the chat before I even ask her the first question? Miss Grace, are you here with us? Okay, great. Okay, so Zimbabwe has been growing youth-led advocacy around period poverty and menstrual health from the ground up. In your experience, funding the Bright Girls movement, how have national policies and legal frameworks either supported or hindered your work in communities like Mbare? And what does policy landscape look like for menstrual health in Southern Africa?
Good morning, young leaders, young female leaders. I am so excited to be here and thank you so much for your question, One Wise. Thank you so much for that question. I was just reflecting on the question and I was like, this is actually speaking to what the Southern Africa is supposed to do. What exactly are we supposed to do? So my witness on both the progress and challenges that the national policies and legal frameworks create in addressing period poverty and menstrual health, that is what I was reflecting about. And I realized that here in Zimbabwe, there is a growth in youth-led advocacy. As the youths are taking the lead, they are taking the initiative to have this grassroots effort whereby we're using them to address the different gaps that exist within our communities. And also the policies, they're also there to provide some level of support, but implementation gaps, they actually continue to hinder our impactful work. The supportive framework by the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education, they're also now partnering with different organizations to spread awareness and also having open conversations, because when you're talking about no shame, no stigma, no limit, we're talking about having open conversations, because without open conversations then we're doing nothing. Periods are not always about just giving pads and treating it as a charity case, but treating it as a priority, because it's a basic health thing that we should actually make sure that we have prioritized it. It's a natural process, just like someone who gets a flu today. It's natural. And having a menstrual cycle, it's natural. So we should prioritize them. Here in Zimbabwe, I've also realized that there is also the constitutional commitment from the gender equality groups that are working on period poverty, saying that it's not supposed to be a barrier to education, because you notice that a lot of young ladies miss school because of a period poverty, and also the lack of dedicated menstrual health policies. For example, here in Zimbabwe, the pads are so expensive. They are dollar um dollar each, and imagine you do not only need that one packet. Sometimes you need about two packets, and you need like $2. And having your menstrual cycle maybe two times a month, and there are also people who have a heavy flow. Are we making sure that they get access to affordable menstrual products? And also from my side, I've realized that there is lack of funding, um, because, like I was saying, that we treat it as a charity case. If I go on today to ask for funding because we want to host a menstrual symposium, people are going to treat it as a charity case, and we're not able to have that conversation to keep it going. When you start to have an open conversation, you're supposed to make sure that it keeps on going. You're not supposed to stop. And also the lack of dedicated menstrual health policies here in Zimbabwe. um, but in overall, I can just say that we must have a comprehensive menstrual health policy, and also strong investment in youth led, because we as young people, we're the ones who understand what is going on with us. We understand our own realities. So if we understand our own realities, imagine putting a man on the forefront of menstrual health things. Is he going to understand that pads are supposed to be affordable? He's not going to understand, because he doesn't experience a menstrual cycle. And in conclusion, I'll just say that we're supposed to have an integration of menstrual health in education, whereby we're saying that in institutions and primary schools and high schools, let's make sure that we already give these young students information on what menstruation is. Let's start from there, from the young people, catching them young and telling them that menstruation is a natural process that we should embrace, and then we can go forward from there. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much for that beautiful insight. And actually reminding us that meaningful change happens when policy moves beyond just paper to reach communities and young women. Thank you so much for that. And building on that perspective, let us explore how legal and institutional systems are shaping menstrual health in other contexts with the help of Ms. Joy Kamau. She is the founder and the CEO of Better Lives, a human rights defender and sexual and reproductive health rights advocate that is committed to advancing gender equality and community empowerment advocacy across East and Central Africa. Now, Ms. Joy, are you with us in the chat before I give you your question?
I'm around.
Oh,
Hi.
perfect. Thank you. So, as a human rights defender and SRHR advocate working at the grassroots level in Nakuru County, what legal and institutional frameworks exist in Kenya to protect the menstrual health and hygiene rights of women and girls? And how effectively are these frameworks reaching communities across East and Central Africa?
Okay. Thank you so much, Mashudu. I hope I got the name correctly. And also thank you so much, the Amazon Leadership Initiative, for this chance to be able to speak on this very important issue on legal framework and also the policies that are in place regarding menstrual hygiene. Thank you for this chance even to be able to speak to truth to power on this issue of no shame, no stigma, and no limits. It's amazing because I don't want to start the issue without actually giving the little data we have around menstrual hygiene. Policies essentially are about people and communities. And like in Kenya, 54% of girls face challenges in accessing menstrual hygiene products. 65% of women and girls lack sustainable support in menstrual hygiene materials and proper infrastructure in menstrual hygiene management. Technically, around 45% of girls have access to clean water and soap. I think one of my colleagues had talked about just about the wash aspect on menstrual hygiene management. So 42% are the ones with access, meaning that more than 58 don't have proper access to water. And technically, this means it's a policy issue. It's not an issue that only the family or a home or a small community can handle. It's a national issue that needs policies in place. Whether in Kenya, we have county government and the national government. And one of the issues that we have in Kenya, we have a very comprehensive menstrual hygiene. We have a national menstrual hygiene management policy. And this policy, what it does, it actually stipulates how young people in schools, those in schools, should access pads. And this means that actually the government puts money towards it. Always for us, it lies between Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health. It's a health issue and it's an education issue for us. And it looks like most of the time it lies towards education because it targets the girls in school. Essentially, this means majority of girls and women, okay, let me just focus on the girls because at Better Lives we work and focus more on girls and youth and adolescents. It means any adolescent or any young girl who is not in school will not be able to actually get the pads that are allocated by the National Menstrual Hygiene Policy. Sadly for me, the menstrual hygiene policy is just on paper because majority of our children do not receive the study, probably because of the issues of, our
Okay, it seems as though we have lost Miss Joy. Bit of a network issue over there. But so far, based on what she said, it's like really important in realizing that everything with menstrual cycle is not only just for us personally, but also part of the policy. And we need to find ways in which we can implement policies that better for young
am I
girls. Okay, you're back. Okay. Hi, Miss
um,
Joy. Yes, now we can
um,
hear you. You were
I
not
don't know
audible for a moment.
is my volume still audible?
Yeah, now you're perfect.
Sorry,
That's
I don't know
okay.
what happened. My phone just disappeared. So I don't know up to what point you had me, but I think I had said the policy is on paper. Did you get that? Had I said that before it went off?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. So the policy is on paper. It alienates a percentage of the girls who are not in school, but the ones who are in school receive, but not all, especially the girls in rural and informal settlements. They are still marginalized. And in most cases, close the door. Nakuja. Close the door. Sorry. Mostly the girls in informal and rural communities rarely receive. And I think it should be three pads per per month. And if the girls would receive that every month, then things would mean the girls would be okay. When it comes to policy, I think that is the main document that we have. I think I'll share it at some point in the chat so that everybody is able to look at it and just learn from probably the Kenyan situation. That is about it. And these sanitary pads are usually given through school, and sometimes when it comes now to the community, the DCC, district commissioners in Nakuru County, usually receive some sanitary to be able to supply to girls as well. That is about it when it comes to the structure. However, we have a lot of interventions from community-based organizations, NGOs, generally CSOs, so civil society organizations have really brought in the much-needed help to just try and support girls in school. Basically, when we talk about today's theme, which is no limit, let me just focus on low limit. What menstrual health to some girl, what it means is that some girls are not able to attend schools. Essentially, that means they have been limited to access education. And if you can't access menstrual health management products, no girl can go to school without a pad on their menstrual day. Even if a woman like me, I wouldn't go to work if I don't have access to a pad. That day, probably I'll stay at home so that I'm safe. And the stigma that comes with it. And as I said, it's only 65 are not able to access that. So CSOs and community-based organizations and NGOs, and even some foundations. I'll just mention one of them because it's well known. Safaricom Foundation, it's a mobile facility in Kenya, have really come in through to ensure that girls have access to sanitary pads. One of the projects they have is the one called the Hairy products. Let me just confirm the name, Hairy. That is Safaricom Foundation, Huru Sanitary Pad Project. They work with communities to just provide reusable sanitary pads in some rural parts of Kenya. Nakuru has also benefited from them, especially with their project. the one that is called, there's another project where they usually do donations for communities. The one for Safaricom, what they do, they time during exam time and they give sanitary pads during that exam time, which takes between almost a month for high school, and for primary school, they take almost 3 to 5 days. So that time they ensure that any girl who would have been on menstrual period, they would access school and be able to partake the exams. When it comes to the Huru sanitary, they make reusable, which is sustainable. Remember, menstrual health still falls under SDG 2. No, sorry, 3, which is health, yeah? And health should be sustainable, and menstrual health is part of it. So with Safaricom, they do reusable, and we also have other institutions which do reusable sanitary pad, and that technically helps in ensuring that girls can access. Also, the challenge with the reusable sanitary pad, I think somebody talked about the challenge to water, which is also a problem in most of our rural communities. Technically, those are just a few of the interventions that institutions and communities have tried to just do so that they can ensure that girls have access to the period materials. And we have also international NGOs that have tried to help in supporting girls, like UNICEF, UNFPA, and through their interventions, girls have been able to access, not to be limited, not to access education. And that is a good thing because, as I said, menstrual hygiene is not something that belongs to just a home or a family or an individual. It affects all of us. It's in access. How one is able to just go to school, go to work, apart from going to work, even just being able to participate in social activities and the like. Being able to participate and just meaningfully, not just being there, the body is there, but the mind is not there. Trust you me, if every woman is able to access these facilities, yeah, like for example, we go for public participation to just give contribution into ideas of what we want development. If a public participation is happening and I need to do a meaningful engagement and participation, I must be sure that where I'll be going, there is a toilet on the day when I'm on my menstruation, because after an hour or 2 or 3, I might need to change. But if I know if that place, I'll not be able to access a safe and a good washroom, trust you me, I will not go, because I know I'll not be taken care of. And we know women participation is also affected by menstrual hygiene and health. Also, something that I think I should share when it comes to infrastructure and the legal and the menstrual hygiene, legal and the policies, I would also want to talk about something else that is not, we've not mentioned, the connection between menstrual hygiene and FGM, that is female genital mutilation. We also have an anti-FGM policy, which actually protects girls and women from FGM. I know some of us might not see the connection, but actually they have very big connection, because FGM affects how a woman is able to menstruate, right? The first presenter talked about how it's shedding of an egg that has not been fertilized and all that. And yet you find in some communities when they do FGM, they seal that part of the vagina. Let me just use the right word, the vagina, because in SRH we don't mince words, we just use them the way they are. Once you seal, what happens? Are you able to menstruate properly? Not really. Probably that could lead to other infections. When you're not able to shed something out that is supposed to come out, what happens to you and your body and how it affects SRH? So I think that policy on anti-FGM, also the board and all that, helps in, if all girls and women are not taken through FGM, then even menstruation will be able to just flow without hindrance the way it should be flowing. Those are just a few policy and laws that are in place. Also, I think apart from that, girls and women, the maintenance we also find that especially in workplace and school, we have workplaces that are friendly and not friendly because their internal policies do not even support women. I've been to some workplaces where you go to a washroom and you do not find a place to dispose a pad. What does that make you as a lady do? You end up carrying a pad in a bag for a whole day. I don't know if any of you would want to work in a place whereby after you go to the washroom, you come back with your pad in the bag. Probably you don't even have other way or another place to throw, and you're not allowed to throw probably in the bin. Something else I've noted in some places in Kenya and generally in East Africa, we have some organizations. When you go to the events or when you go to the even hotels, we have several hotels. I won't be mentioning names because no one will pay me for saying their name, so that when people from other countries come, they'll be able to access. I've gone to some washrooms in some of the hotels where you find sanitary pads available. You'll just, in case you will need, you're a lady, you're visiting with that hotel, you'll find pads. You just pick an emergency one. For Nakuru, we have several pad banks. I also won't mention the organizations because I didn't get time to ask them if I can mention them, but we have up to 3 pad banks in Nakuru town. If you're in CBD and you have an emergency with menstruation, we know the calendar, the dates and all that, but sometimes it might find you when you're not ready. I know of 3 pad banks in Nakuru town where I can just even send somebody, I'm in town, I don't have money, I need a pad. I can tell them just go to this organization, it's in this building, you'll find a pad. You can get up to a packet depending on your needs. I'll just mention something about my organization, which is Better Lives. For the last, since 2021, we've been supporting not less than 30 girls with sanitary pads per month, with the support from a partner who gives us sanitary. We give at least a packet of pads to school-going girls. Some have already finished Form 4, so as they move to the next level, we always have we replace the number, we add more. So with that, we are sure that the girls we mentor in our organization, they're able to comfortably attend classes. Even I have cases where some people just talk, could you be having a pad? I need one, and they are supported. So by and by, we've seen community-based organizations, some NGOs supporting girls. Rarely women, especially. I'll not mention women. I'll focus on the girls, the adolescents that I work with. So technically, that is what I've seen happen in Kenya, and I don't want to pretend that I know much about the other part of the region, especially TZ, Uganda, but I know in Uganda we have initiatives that continue to support women and girls. Technically, let me just end there because of time and also give other people a chance to speak. But by 2030, according to the Sustainable Development Goals, we were hoping and targeting that we make menstrual hygiene health a normal conversation part of life. For example, when you wake up as a man, as a mother, you will discuss what are we going to have for lunch? What are we going to, as you go for shopping, you make a list. Sanitary pads or menstrual hygiene, menstruation products must be in the list. And brothers and sisters actually need to actually prioritize it, just like the same way we prioritize flour, we prioritize Blue Band, we prioritize tissue and other needs in the home. We make menstrual conversations as part of our daily discussions. We make it like it's a normal part of life, and that will end the stigma, and that will end the limits that limit women and girls to attend, and that will end the shame. Actually, in Kenya, I always see when I go to buy pads, like yesterday, I went to buy a packet, and the lady in the supermarket tried to wrap it, and I told her, no, don't wrap my pad. Why are you wrapping it? But I knew it's the shame associated with it, the stigma. I just told her I'm a menstrual hygiene advocate, and I advocate for freedom, and I advocate for people to be able to just consume these goods without shame, stigma, and fear. Even today in Kenya, if you go to a supermarket, when they are wrapping, some of the goods that will be wrapped is actually a sanitary pad, which I don't think should happen. I think we should be able to experience menstruation free without fear, stigma, and limits. And I think if we
Very
can do that
true, Mrs.
ourselves as
Joy.
women, we accept that, and we
That is
let men
very
also
true.
listen. And I start that from my home. I have a son, and I make sure that he knows it's important for the two sisters to be able to get that. There's a presenter who said that a man helped in a situation where a girl did not have sanitary pads. And I felt like we should have clapped for that man, because it tells you that the work we've been doing has actually progressed. We are not at the same point where we used to be. If a man can support a girl or a woman to just make sure that there is no shame, then our work is progressing. We are not at the same
And
point
it
where
really is
we used to be,
progressing, you
where
know?
where girls and women used to be shamed.
Yes.
But that is not to say that we've done the work or
Yes,
finished.
Miss
The
Joy.
stigma is still there, and we do not want the stigma to be there. And it should not limit any girl or woman from accessing education, work opportunity, and the like. Also, the infrastructure must be safe for the girls and the women. That way, we will actually and be that way we'll be ensuring that there is no shame, no stigma, and no limits. Let me end at that, and I hope I was audible enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Joy. Thank you so much for that. And truly, it is women like you that bring about so much change. And this shows the fact that that man was able to advocate for us as women. It just really shows that we are better together. And by 2030, whatever it is goals that you guys have, we are most certainly going to reach them. For as long as we keep on advocating for women and speaking over about them and making sure that we will stop feeling shame about going through whatever the natural body needs to go through. And now we're going to quickly move over to our third panelist, Miss Aisha Inua. She serves as a programs officer at Education as a Vaccine Nigeria, where she works to advance youth empowerment, education access, and menstrual health initiatives across schools and communities. Is Ms. Is Ms. Aisha with us? Miss Aisha?
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. So, what would you say from your work in your program at Education as a Vaccine? How do the policies and legal frameworks govern menstrual health and hygiene management in Nigerian schools and communities? And how is civil society across West Africa stepping in to fill the gaps where legislation falls short?
Okay, thank you, Bonwise. I hope you can hear me clearly. So first off, I would say that in Nigeria, there has been, especially recently, there has been like really gradual improvement, progress in terms of menstrual health and dignity. I'm excited to share that we have our first ever national policy on menstrual health and hygiene management that was validated last year mid last year. This was spearheaded by the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, which is the leading ministry for menstrual health and dignity in Nigeria. So basically, this policy has a very ambitious goal, but I wouldn't say ambitious, I would say necessary. What it does is that what it wants to do is that by 2030, no menstruating individual in Nigeria should have to choose, right, between managing their periods, right, and then going to school or work. So it outlines this framework that wants to integrate menstrual health and dignity into school, into education, and into the sanitation sector. So it's working on three basic pillars, right? The first pillar is what affordable product. They're trying to waive taxes on sanitary towels, right? And promoting exemption for period companies that are owned by Nigerians, have mandatory wash facilities, not just in workplaces, in schools, in public places, and etc. Right, and then integrating menstrual health education into the curricula so that you don't treat it as a standalone topic, you treat it as part of the Nigerian curriculum. And this for them is going a long way, right, in addressing menstrual stigma and discrimination, because they want to start at the grassroots level. And then prioritizing access for vulnerable populations like people in the IDP camps, persons that are internally displaced, that's people in the IDP camps, persons with disability, etc. So first off, I would like to stress on why this policy is important. Historically in Nigeria, right, millions of girls, right, drop out of school. Some don't even go to school because they don't have access to products, menstrual products. Maybe when they are stained and there's no facilities for them to wash themselves, for them to change, you see them going home, and then they will end up missing the school activities that they have, but they have for that for that period. So apart from just the menstrual health and dignity policy that we have an abridged document now. The drafted policy has been sent to the Federal Executive Council for adoption. We also have other frameworks like the Child Rights Act. We have the Child Rights Act. We have the National Policy for school. We also have the Universal Basic Education framework, right, for promoting safer learning experience. So apart from this, right, before I talk about, right, the gaps, right, civil society educations that are coming into view, I would like to talk a little bit about the implementation challenges or gap, right? Because I had mentioned all these policies, apart from the National Menstrual Health Policy, which has not been launched yet, but is in the process of being launched. These other Child Rights Act, the National School Health Policy have been in existence, right? But the menstrual health dignity component, right, has not been fully entrenched, right? And budget allocation have not been fully put in place, right, for these acts that I've mentioned. So we still now have challenges, right? We still have schools where there are no wash facilities. We still have schools where girls don't have access to menstrual products. We still have schools that the teachers are not maybe adequately trained, right, to respond to menstrual health issues. We get to see that from our society now, we get to see that most times young girls spend more time at school. So I would say, I don't have the statistics, but I would say out of maybe 70, 100%, I would say 60% of girls actually see their first period in school. I don't know if other persons here agree with me, right? And the first person of contact in this is the teacher, right? Is the student. So we get to see that some teachers are not adequately trained to respond to this situation due to the stigma, the fear, the silence that menstruation is supposed to be something that is discussed in a hushed tone. You don't talk about it openly. And a girl has shared that she was pained in class, and her teacher told her to leave the class, right? And she was really, really embarrassed, right? So those are some of the issues that I would like to mention, right? And then access to also wash facilities. I get to tell you that there are some schools that there's no, will I say, they don't have toilets. For those that have toilets, there's no water, right? And then girls have to maybe go to the bush to change themselves, or well, maybe just go home, and they end up missing the school activities for that day. So these are basic challenges I'll mention. Then I will now look at how CSOs, right, like us, are moving into to fill in this implementation gap. I'll say that CSOs, what we do basically is complement the work of the government in Nigeria here, right? When in cases where maybe the government needs support, we're just working hand in hand to make sure that where your resources are not enough, right, I can just come in, right, from the funds and whatever it is that I have. So in terms of advocacy, in terms of community engagement, and in terms of digital innovation, I think this is where CSOs in West Africa, especially in Nigeria, are filling in those gaps. And I'll speak from Nigeria basically before, because I'm in Nigeria, I'm an organization in Nigeria, and this is where I have more of the information from. So I'll use my organization as an example. We had developed an app called the Diva app, right, which is a technological innovations where young persons can have access to menstrual health information, and then a community where they can also share their experiences and ask questions. Because if we see that maybe there's stigma, right, and people cannot openly ask questions, it's important they have a space, right, where they can go and ask questions without judgment, and then they get the accurate information that they need. You agree with me? Somebody has mentioned that menstrual dignity, or addressing menstrual period poverty is not just about sharing parts, like it's not a charity case. You also have to provide that platform where people can get information. So that Diva app is providing that platform where people can get information, get to track the cycle, and then get to share their experiences and ask any questions they may have regarding menstrual health and dignity. And then we are also supporting the National Menstrual Health and Hygiene Management Technical Working Group. This is like a coalition of experts, right? Not just the ministry, and it's not just the Ministry of Men Affairs that is spearheading this the movement for menstrual health and dignity in Nigeria. We have the Ministry of Environment, Education, Water Resources, and other CSOs as well, right, working together to promote menstrual health and dignity in Nigeria. So we had developed like a governance manual to ensure that the activities of this technical working group is actually coordinated, right, and is giving their desired result. That's for us, right? We also have other organizations that are doing amazing work in terms of community sensitization, including boys and men in the conversation, because when you talk about menstruation, it's not just a girl's issue, right? It's a societal issue. And when you're talking about society, you have both the boys, the men, the women, the leaders, everybody is actually involved, right? Community sensitization, we have an organization like PSI, that's Population Service International, where there are social enterprises that produce this reusable, but not just reusable, but other menstrual health products, and also build the capacity of young girls to produce these parts themselves, right? And then I had mentioned, okay, to mention about a few, right? Community sensitization, even wash facilities, right? Some organizations actually maybe build toilets, renovate toilets, provide water supply, etc., and the rest. So from this, right, I'm just trying to put out that when it comes to menstrual health and dignity, I know we say, okay, the government must do this, the government must do that, but from what I've mentioned, right, you see that it's not just the government issue, right? It's the individual issue, the society issue, and then the CSOs issue as well. And then working together, right, with CSOs, right, we see that to provide more like a coordinated approach, right, to addressing menstrual health, hygiene and stigma in Nigeria, and then ensuring that whatever it is we're doing is having more impact, because where the federal government might be falling short, right, the CSOs are then coming into filling that gap, and we see that there's a synergy in the way this operation is made. So not to take too much of our time from Nigeria, this is what it looks like for now. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much for those reflections and showcasing that collaborative and collaborations across communities, schools, and institutions is very important. You understand? Everybody has a part to play in this, and ensuring that women and young girls get access to all the necessary information and everything that they need to deal with their menstrual health. Okay, so I was going to ask second round of questions, but I can see that we are really running out of time. So I'm just going to pose just one more question, and I'm going to give each and every one of our panelists an opportunity and a chance to answer this question. So just be aware that the question that I'm going to direct is going to be to each and every one of our panelists, and I'll just give you a chance to then just answer the question. Okay, so sorry for just one moment. Let me just quickly get the question. My notes are pretty much everywhere. Sorry about that. Okay, just give me one moment. And then point towards. Okay. Sorry. Great stuff. So this question is directed to all of our panelists, and the question is, what is one practical action young women can take today to break the silence, challenge menstrual stigma, and advance menstrual health and hygiene management within their communities, schools, or workplaces in the spirit of no shame, no stigma, no limits. So this is over. I'm directing it over to any one of our panelists. Anybody willing to quickly hop onto that question and then give us a brief answer?
Okay, thank you so
Great.
much for that question. So I would say that let's start having honest conversations about menstrual health, especially with our children at workplace and school and churches, and challenge those harmful jokes, those harmful sayings, the myths, and to debunk taboos. So at Bright Girls Movement, we believe that leaders lead with pride because we're linking menstruation with leadership so that our young ladies can understand that menstruation doesn't stop you from achieving your goals. And in line with what the Ali says, that black girl, your dreams are valid. So your dreams are valid despite the fact that you menstruate. Menstruation is a natural process, it's a normal process, and we're linking it and giving you the confidence that you can still lead as you bleed. So thank you so much for this question, and thank you so much for this webinar as well. Over to you, Bonwai.
Thank you so much. And I cannot believe it. I am so sorry, Dr. Badar. I forgot to ask you your own personal question. Imagine doing that to a whole doctor. I am so, so sorry. So we're just going to quickly hop, and I just need to ask Miss Badar. I am so sorry. Oh, my bad, my bad. I can't believe. Like, I am so sorry. Okay. So just a quick one. Ms. Badar, I just wanted to quickly find out, just sorry, my notes are a bit all over the place. Just give me one moment. Yes, there we go. So, Ms. Badar, right? Ms. Badar is, oh, wait, sorry, one moment. Oh my God. Let me just quickly we need to get to know who Miss Badar actually is, okay? Can't just hop on and then just give her question. Absolutely not. We need to know that Dr. Badar is a physician, a project manager at Love Matters Arabic with extensive experience in sexual and reproductive health and rights programming, reaching young people across Egypt and the MENA region. So, doctor, I just wanted to find out that as a physician with over 10 years of SRHR experience and project manager of Love Matters Arabic, reaching young people across Egypt and the MENA region, you have a distinctive view of the legal and policy landscape governing menstrual health in North Africa. How do national frameworks in Egypt and across the northern region address menstrual health and hygiene management? And how do cultural, religious, and social norms shape the way these policies are and are not implemented on the ground?
Thank you. Thank you so much for your energy in this afternoon also. I guess that there is no difference between the context that you shared, like from Nigeria to Kenya to Uganda. It's the same context. It's not a priority. We don't have a policy about menstrual health. Still, we don't see the integration between health and education, but also economy, right? We need to acknowledge this as a point of advocacy to our government, how public participation, as mentioned before by speakers, but also enrollment in education, and also a lot of grown-ass women also miss going to a job, not only school. Like some of the women were not able to join their government, for example, jobs because of they having the period, because of the whole environment around them, from buying the bads, but then also having the environment to change the bad in this environment. And I guess there is a lot of conversation that we have been seeing about also understanding the disorder that I was speaking out, but is also within the framework of health and well-being, right? Because we are seeing now Spain and Portugal give like period vacation, for example, as part of not missing your, like you lose because you are missing a school, but also you lose because you miss your employment. So if you skip a day, you are taking it from your annual leave, or it decrease your salary rate. So we are seeing more and more European countries trying to acknowledge period pain and period as part of womanhood and part of a public health issue. So they give it as a part of not sick leave, but also they allow you to take this without deduction in your salary or deduction of your annual pay. And I guess you have to see it from economic point of view. A lot of unpaid care work are done by women, and it's done by women, and most of the time when they are experiencing this severe pain. So it needs to be understood as a body autonomy kind of topic, but also right-based topic. Is not only health, is not only education, can seen as an economic impact of woman integration in this space. And I really like the point about the stigma, and I like your questions. And I remember one of the conversation that always say of buying and wearing the period. I guess it started from this action of normalizing, creating a positive social norm by doing what we are preaching for, right? Because sometimes we are in this space, feel free to say period or I'm buying it, but like we shy in a public space. So also in the 10-year celebration of Women Love Matter Arabic, we did like a tote bag about this. I don't know if you were able to see it or not, I don't think, but it's like a black bag, and then it has the pink beer bands. I don't think it's a beer because of the effect, but it has like it مش محتاجة كيس اسود, which means it does not need a black bag to put the period pants. And it's in Arabic, so a lot of people were wearing it in Egypt. So those small act kind of reinforce positive social norm. uh, and I see it also in the framework of period poverty, and we understand poverty. Yes, it's expensive products, but also you see, for example, in Egypt, and I know in many African country, that is considered as a luxury product, right? Which makes it more taxable. So in Egypt, for example, sanitary pad are considered as part of buying makeup or buying deodorant, right? It's not a public health uh, equipment or tool. So it has a 30% extra tax on this product because you feel like it's a luxury for women to use it. It's not like, for example, other product that they consider it as a healthy product. For example, the shaver for men, they consider it a public health issue. So men need to shave. Oh my God! But woman does not have to manage their period with dignity, but also should not be expensive. It should not be a luxury. So it's also part of the legal framework that we're trying to advocate in Egypt, is making more affordable. And we know in Africa, the internal displacement and also the movement inside Africa, that the more refugees or immigrant in the country, the more likelihood that they are not able to afford. We have been seeing a lot of this in internal conflict, but also in war, but also in disturbance, like we have been seeing in Ebola, for example, in DRC. So all of those issue, humanitarian crisis does not discriminate also on women having period during this period, and it's usually forgotten issue when they provide services or the care. They care about the food, they care about the water, but they don't think about like women also needing this product to manage their health and well-being in a good way. So I remember one of the focus group discussion that I had here with Syrian refugees in Egypt. I don't want to say refugees because we don't immigrants in Egypt. And the girl was asking about like how, like we know, for example, sanitary pad is the most global thing now. People are thinking about tampon and cups and more sustainable issue for the environment, but also not expensive. And I were asking about like how often you change it. And we know sanitary pad should be changed between 3 to 6 hours, and it should not be staying long because of the risk of the toxic shock syndrome, which is very serious issue during this time of period. And she said what really shocked me. She said, like, I count how many bad that I have, and I divided on the number of days of my period. So it's a different logistic. When you think I have 5 bads and I have 5 days of period, so I'm going to use one every day. It's not they don't think it at this time from a health perspective because of the limited resources that we have. So I think this lack of information, we don't know how many practice, like we know in many communities in Egypt and Africa, a lot of people still use, for example, the old towel, and we don't provide them the information about how to clean it properly and how to use it because it's the only resources available. And I'm really hopeful in the future in Africa because I have been seen in Rwanda, I have been seen also in Kenya, a lot of social entrepreneurship trying to encourage production of reusable bags as a source of economic empowerment for women, but also of a sustainable sheep products. So all of those kind of holistic approach of the legal framework, it need to be considered. And I guess as an advocate, we need to leverage all the treaties that our government signed on it, what is was African Union or the UN or CEDAW, no discrimination, or even the international the International Conference on Population, where that happened in Cairo, where all of our country kind of signed and ratified of saying like we believe in women having to manage the reproductive agency with autonomy. And finally, for I guess Joy was speaking about the how FGM is linked to menstrual health, but also how also child marriage in our context is linked also to menstrual health because it tie in womanhood. We graduate children to be a woman once they have the menstrual health, and then we see a lot of harmful practice happen to them. Once you become a woman, you can be pregnant, so you can be subjected to child marriage, but also we are afraid that you get pregnant because God forbid that you get pregnant. So you experience FGM as a way of controlling women's sexuality. So also from civil society and people who work in this field, we need to think about those issues are integrated and happen in simultaneously. In the same age that women subjected to FGM, they are subjected to child marriage and they are experiencing their period for the first time. So it's a lot to take in for the mind of for adolescents in the context of in our country. And we need not to forget about the whole process of also pre-menopause and menopause. We don't need to advocate for one topic because we are in the age group of experiencing it, but also it's really important not to reach the age and forget about also managing menopause and managing menopause with availability of hormonal therapy or vitamin or whatever needed also for women to support her whole journey from getting the period and from stopping it. Sorry, I know that we are above time, so I will limit my talk to this part.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And truly, there's still a lot that we need to do for women. And I do believe that today's conversation moves beyond awareness and towards actions. Because truly, when shame is removed, stigma is challenged and barriers are broken down. And there's truly no limits as a woman, because as women we're not asking just for the products, we are asking for the education, the respect, the inclusion, and opportunities without limitations. I just want to take this moment to thank our incredible speakers, participants, and young leaders for contributing to this conversation. May we continue advocating, educating, creating spaces where every girl and young woman can thrive with no shame, no stigma, and no limit. That will be all from me, your facilitator, Bonwise Mashudu. Over to you, Annelise.
Thank you so much, Sister Bonwise, for that incredible facilitation, and our speakers as well. Thank you so much. I learned so much. I know we were having such a great conversation in the chat box, and we now move to our Q&A session. So if you have any questions for our speakers, please feel free to drop them in the chat, or you can also just raise your virtual hand and then you can go ahead and ask the question. In the meanwhile, while we are waiting for the questions, I do have a question for Dr. Nohan. A very simple question, I think. But do you think that do contraceptives in general actually affect the menstrual cycle? And if so, in what way?
Very important questions, and we know contraception, of course, it's a hormones. It mimics the cycle as a way of depend if you are taking contraception that has the two hormone, progesterone and estrogen, or one estrogen. So it depends on in those some of those the two hormones or kind of help regulate the period, and sometimes also physician prescribe them as a one way of regulating the period, and it could be also one of the pathways for treating polycystic ovary. Some of the hormones, if you are taking it for so long, for example, injection or implant in the skin, some of those sometimes does not make the period appear at all, but it's not a bad thing. It's what meant to be, right? Like, because we know with the increase the endometrial also ova start to release. And a lot of females in Egypt, they come to me like, I don't see the period. This is bad thing? It's like, it means that it's stored in my body, but it didn't happen to start with. Like the whole process, the whole hormonal process didn't not start, so nothing is appeared, like does not affect your health and well-being. But also hormonal contraceptive, like any treatment, it need to be done by physician, and it need to be prescribed after taking a strong history. Because if you have a history of certain cancer, or have a history, for example, of thrombosis or a blood condition, like some of the condition, if you have a hypertension, so it need to not take it lightly. You should not take it from the pharmacy or without a proper consultation. But it will affect the way that you will see the period. But the whole idea of contraceptive is stopping the contraceptive. It depends on the type of it. You see fertility and you see your period regained afterward. So it does not affect it bad. Sometimes it's regulated and sometimes you don't see it, but it's not to stop it or affect your health and well-being. Giving that if you take it after a proper taking history about your health condition or any history that you have.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I learned so much through that respond. My beautiful sisters, if you do have a question, please do raise your hand once again, or do share them in the chat. Let me see if there are any in the chat box. Don't be shy, guys. You can pose the questions. Okay, let me ask my second question while we wait. Hopefully, you guys will get or ease into it. So this question is from Ms. Joy. Ms. Joy, are you still on the chat? On the Zoom specifically?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Okay. So Ms. Choi, I have a question with regards to, I know you had mentioned something about having policies that are actively also contributing to us in our menstruation, right? Now, if we were to have these policies, what would they have to address specifically, and how can we actually just implement them? Because I know we are good at creating policies, but then the implementation process remains or continues to be a challenge. What can we do in this regard?
Sorry. Thank you, Annalise. It is surprising that a lot of countries create policies and then they keep them in the shelf for them to gather dust.
Oh, Ms.
Meanwhile,
Joy, you aren't audible. We
I,
can't
I'm
really
not.
hear you.
You still can't
Miss
hear me?
Joy?
You can't hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you a bit, but I think there's a problem with the sound.
And now?
Okay, now I can hear.
Actually, my other name signed me, so I thought I just did.
Mm.
I'm saying, you can hear me? Uh, I am saying Africa has a way of just making documents which end up gathering dust on the shelves. But I think implementing to me would look like let me just use our national menstrual hygiene policy. It looks like we know each country knows the number of girls and women they have. In this particular case, if I'm talking about girls, when it comes to that menstrual hygiene policy, each country knows. Like for us in Kenya, we do school capitation. And I think if each girl's menstrual product, for example, would come with a capitation, the same way it comes with the books, that would look like implementation to me. You get it? Am I audible? Yeah. The same way we do capitation for books and pencils and how the teachers will be paid and the like, that would look like availability. The same government does toilets. If the toilets for the girls and women in the workplaces will be properly done, then that is a policy implemented for me. When it comes to water, the government is still the same that is responsible for giving us water. I know there is no day that the Kenya government will come to my door and give me water, but just ensuring that I can access, I can, like in schools, the schools should be able to provide lots of water, whether by harvesting via the roof, whichever one it is, as long as girls have access to water. Because you know, if a girl is menstruating and the school has no water for even, I think if we can implement that then, it will reduce the intersectionality that is there. Uh, it will just reduce the multiplication of issues that girls have. Like in Kenya, we've had issues of girls actually engaging in teenage sex or transactional sex so that they can get the product. You can imagine you start thinking about how you get your card early by engaging in transactional sex so that a boy, mostly the young men who ride motorbikes, you just, for you to get 100 shillings, you sleep with them so that you can get cards. But if the government will ensure they are available, that girl will be safe from transactional sex. That girl will be safe from HIV. That girl will be safe from early pregnancy, and that same girl will be safe from even a form of gender-based violence. Because you can imagine if once she gives the second, the young man refuses or the man refuses to give her the money, probably they are likely to hit, and then that will escalate gender-based violence. So for me, once women and girls are able to access cards and the policies like just mainstream menstrual hygiene health into our family systems, whereby from home a woman does not have to beg for her to get pads. A girl gets those pads even without asking. Just even from family policy, it will reduce a lot of other things like FGM, no, not the FGM, but GBV, control of women, and all that. It will really help right from family and then to the school, and then from the school to the nation. It will reduce a lot of intersecting issues which multiply women's problems. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Miss Joy, for that response. Unfortunately, the sound was a bit, I couldn't hear properly, but we have two questions in the chat. I think these are for Dr. Nuhan. So, Doctor, um, what would make a person not have her period for 3 months or and then they resume? Yeah.
Thank you. So I guess I mentioned before, not having your period, it can be multiple of factors. And it could be from nutrition, changing your nutrition habit if you're starting to diet or you're starting to take more food or less food. Also stress, and stress with all kind of stress, like stress in work, stress in school, can make the hormone, because we know that the hormone of stress kind of affect fertility and affect the estrogen and progesterone, so you might not experience it at but I guess having it for not for several months, if you are saying more than 3 months, I guess it's worth examining to see if there any hormonally change, to see if it's in only environmental, it was a transition. So usually a hormonal workup and a little bit of sonar, it's really good to check. It might be because of other environmental factor, but it could be happening. And also, if you are taking contraception, contraception also can affect seeing the period for a while.
All right, thank you, Doctor. I think we have another question from Inua Aisha. You can just unmute yourself and then pose your question.
Yeah. Hello. Hope you can hear me. Thank you, to our host. So I would just like, would I say clarity, or just my question is also directed to Dr. Lohan. So apart from PMS, menopause, there's an issue like I think that has been getting more popularity, which is an early menopause. Right. So I just want us to just give us like a brief information. What is early menopause? What does it entail? Is it caused biologically, or is it also as a result of stress and other factors as well? Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we have a pre-menopause, which is like before your menopause, so you start to experience some of the symptoms of the menopause. But I guess more nowadays we are more able to recognize early menopause. And it could be to multiple factors. It could be just the genetic, and it's your body of having your period, whatever, at 16, and then starting going to early menopause before 40 or 45. It could be also a lot of like some of it is a hormonal failure, and it could be from different pathways, from hypothalamus, LH, FSH, but also ovaries, hormones, and then you experiences all of the hot flashes or body aching because of the hormonal is decreased. And that's why the easiest way to discover this and easiest way to recognize it, and maybe also knowing the root cause, right? Because I cannot help you to know the root cause right now, but also hormonal workout give us an overview if the hormone is normal, but then it's something else, it is interfering with this. Because it could be also other factor, if the body is experience a stress and form of a disease, if someone, if it's some sort of a high insulin resistance, for example, it can affect your period, and it can affect your general well-being. If you are diabetic, if there is any endocrine disorder, can also affect going to early menopause. And I guess more than ever, it's a personal opinion, not a medical one, the high stress of this generation that we are experiencing, it kind of also affect the overall well-being and hormonal workout. So also it's worth investigating to know why it's happening. But some of the women that experience it is purely genetic. It's like the difference between girls who have their period at 9 and girls who have their first period at 13 or 14. It's a part of the variation of being in this world. And it could be the amount of ovum that you was born with, and it's totally different between people to people, different on anything. But also you need to investigate, because sometimes a severe stress or severe stress on the body in form of external stress, but also any medical condition that you have that you are not treating well, it could affect you going to the early menopause.
Thank you so much, Doctor, and thank you so much, ladies, for those amazing questions. I just want to remind everyone that conversations like these really matter because they help normalize menstrual health conversations and empower communities through education. So thank you so much once again for your participation and for thoughtful questions. As we come to the end of today's webinar, I would like to sincerely thank every single one of you, our panelists, our organizers, our facilitator, for joining us and being a part of this important conversation. Today reminded us that menstrual health conversations should never be hidden in shame or either in fear, but rather it should be through education, advocacy, and open dialogues. We continue creating a world with no shame, no limits, and no stigma. Now, to officially close us off and to give the Alice call of action, I would love to invite project lead Ms. Tatenda Mutambara, my lovely sister as well from South Africa, to just close us off. Ms. Tatenda, it's over to you. Ms. Tatenda, are you here? I think I saw her somewhere here in the Zoom. Mm.
Good afternoon, ladies. Unfortunately, Mr. Tinda has some internet connection problems, so I'll be doing the vote of thanks on her behalf. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fisabo Mapalo, and I am the country project coordinator for the Amazon Leadership Initiative in Namibia. I would just like to say thank you to all our panelists and all our speakers for the insightful messages and a knowledge sharing that you've given us today. It has also taught us a lot, and we are happy that we could ask questions. This was basically almost like a mini doctor's consultation, free consultation, and I couldn't be more happier with the insights and the advice that you've given us. I would also like to thank our lovely hosts as well as our facilitator for the beautiful facilitation and the hosting of the program, as well as everyone present. I'm happy that even though we are few, that we all managed to attend, and that we can also, the knowledge that was shared here, we can also give it over to the next females, and what we've learned here, we can implement it in our communities as well, and continue to strive for proper menstrual care, especially for females. And I couldn't agree more. I'm not sure which speaker was speaking when they said that sometimes they aren't really places to dispose your pads, and it's not nice to carry a pad around. And I'm a firm believer that pads should be free. No woman, no girl, no female should struggle to get a pad, because having a menstrual cycle is not a choice. And I'm happy that we are advocating for free pads wherever we are, even though it might take long. At least we have started, and we are going to push it with whatever we have. With that being said, may we all have a lovely afternoon. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fasabo, for closing us off. As I'd like to end off saying, please continue engaging with the Ali. Please continue in participating in conversation like the one we've had today, where you can where we promote dignity, inclusion, as well as sustainability and empowerment for all young girls across Africa and the whole world. Don't forget to follow us, engage, and share your takeaways for this amazing conversation discussion that happened here. I'm truly eager to just hear as to what you've learned, what you want, what you're going to do in your community as well. So as always, please do stay safe, take care, and have a lovely day ahead. Thank you so much once again. Goodbye.